Also, I'm in a poor connectivity area. So if by chance the voice breaks, please inform in the chat. गुरोस्तनयं ततश्च विद्याप्य विबुधोत्तमतां दधानं कुर्वे सदा हृदि गुरुं कराख्यं रामं हृदया पात्रं श्रीमद्वेङ्कटनाथार्यं वन्दे वेदान्तदेशीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां यो नित्यमकाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणे गुरोतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजतायोतयस्तनया विभूतिः यदेव नियमेन मदन्वयानाम् आद्यस्य नः कुलपतेर्वकुलाभिरामं श्रीमत्तदङ्घ्रिकुलं प्रणमामि मूर्ध्ना घट्टनाथ श्रीभक्तिसार कुलशेखर योगिवाहान् भक्ताङ्घ्रिरेन्द्रमिश्रान् श्रीमत्पराङ्कुशमुनिं प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यम् प्रपद्ये प्रणवाकारं भाष्यं रङ्गमिवापरं परस्य ब्रह्मणो यत्र शेषित्वं स्फुटमीक्ष्यते. I just recited this. It is is Shri Bhashya is of the same nature. It, the whole am I audible now? Okay, let me share the screen again. So back when Ayodhya's Ram Mandir was consecrated, just 2-3 days before that, our Honorable Prime Minister had visited the holy city of Sri Rangam. This city is connected to Ramayana because the Vigraha of Lord Vishnu, which was worshipped in Ayodhya during the days of Rama and his ancestors, from the days of Ikshvaku, the Vimana in which it was kept, that Vimana is present in Sri Rangam. By Vimana here, we are not referring to a flying machine. We are referring to the structure that houses the Vigraha of Bhagavan. Now, why are we discussing this? This Vimana of Sri Rangam, it is praised in the scriptures. It is praised in Pancharatra. And it has a very specific name. Its name is called Pranavakara Vimana. The Vimana of Sri Rangam, if you look at it, and if you pray to Bhagavan by looking at it, it would be the equivalent of praying by the formal recitation of the pranava. A lot could be said there, but our point is here that the Sri Ranga Vimana is called Pranabakara Vimana. The Sri Bhashya, which has been composed by Bhagavad Ramanuja, that is also Pranavakara. Here in the Sri Bhashya, the focus is fully on Parabrahman. Hence, the verse says, Parasya Brahmano Yatra Sheshitvam Sputamikshate. Yatra Sri Bhashya. In the Sri Bhashya, it is completely established that Parabrahman is the Sheshi. We have discussed before about the words Shesha and Sheshi. He is the one who has everything else as attributes. Even the jivatma could be called as an attribute of Paramatma. Hence, he is Sheshi. The very existence of anything and everything that you might ever see or hear about, apart from Parabrahman, is but a glorification of that Parabrahman itself. The existence of jivas, the existence of Prakriti, everything is like that. Hence, he is celebrated as the cause of all causes. We saw in the second sutra that he is called the one from whom creation happened. He is the creator, preserver, destroyer, everything. He is the cause of all of that. We saw that, Janmadhyasya Yataha. So, as we came along, we understood that the real intent of the Vedas is to glorify that Parabrahman and teach us to go towards Parabrahman. We also talked about just getting knowledge of the Vedas and actually experiencing. His Holiness, the current Shankaracharya of Sringeri, I am referring to the senior one, Bharati Tirtha Swami. He once very beautifully said, knowledge of Advaita is just knowledge. You cannot do much with that knowledge. You cannot even establish it. You cannot even establish Advaita with knowledge. But with experience, it is possible. So, there are cases where you can only be guided, you could only be given indications towards a certain philosophical or theological concept. Beyond that, you experience it, and that is the only way by which you understand. As a simple example, some 2 decades back, there used to be one Tamil TV serial that was glorifying Lord Shiva. In that, an ordinary man would have a debate in a particular scene. An ordinary man would have a debate with a saint. This saint, a Siddha, he wants to teach a lesson to the common man. The common man is there at the tea shop, tea stall. He is having a glass of tea. Now this saint tells him, this is not glass, it is plastic. The man says, you're wrong. This is glass. I've been coming to this tea stall every single day. I know that they use only glass. But the Swami says, no, no, this is not glass. This is plastic. The man gets annoyed. He says, wait, I will prove to you that this is glass. He drinks the tea completely and then throws the glass down. The glass breaks, and the man proudly says, look, the glass broke. Had it been plastic, it wouldn't have broken. I have proven to you that it is glass. Now the Swami says, okay, you have proven to me that it is glass, but where is the glass in which you had tea? You cannot have tea in these pieces anymore. The man essentially broke and destroyed the glass in the name of proving that it is glass. There are such things, right, that we might not understand. We might think we are at the end of the day proving a concept, but we might end up proving it and also distancing ourselves by proving it. It is the same case with Brahman as well. If you decide to prove about Brahman, you start listing all of its qualities. First of all, it will never end. The Vedas themselves have tried and failed to describe Brahman completely. But if you keep trying, if you keep trying, if you keep trying, and then finally you think, look, I have proven that this is Brahman. What do you really gain from that? The whole purpose of imparting us knowledge about Brahman, the real intent of the Vedas, right? It is to help us to not just learn about Brahman and then establish to the world, this is Brahman, your concept is wrong, your religion is wrong, we are correct. That is not the intent at all. It is to understand that Brahman, experience that Brahman, and try to attain that Brahman. That is very important for us to understand. So when we discuss topics like, okay, how is he both the potter and the clay? The potter makes a clay pot. But we are saying that the clay and the potter are both Brahman. How is that possible? That sounds illogical. Maybe you have a machine that produces it, but in that case, Brahman would also be the machine. It gets confusing beyond a point. So with worldly examples, it is possible to understand Brahman only to a certain extent. The Veda has said that he is the potter and he is the clay. If you don't find examples like that on your earth, it is because your earth is different from him. That's all. He is a different entity. He cannot be understood by using just logical reasoning alone. That is the reason why the scriptures were handed down to us by our elders. So, we saw the sutra, Shastra Yonitvat. The true proof that we have of Brahman. What kind of proof could we have? If I have experienced Brahman, I could say I have experienced. Have I experienced Brahman properly, completely, whatever? No, I haven't. If I say yes, I would be lying. How many people have seen? Bhagavad Ramanuja says, Purushottamaha, Srimad Narayanaha. Srimad Narayana is everywhere. But when I look at the laptop screen in front of me, what I see is the screen and not that Srimad Narayana. There is a difference. This difference is because we are not yet at the level where we can see Brahman everywhere. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 5th chapter, Lord Krishna would say, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. Vidya Vinaya. We have discussed the shloka before, so I will cover it quickly. In one who has got so much Vidya, so much education, that he has become humble. He is a humble seeker of the Brahman. And then there is an ordinary guy who never studied anything. He is just a namesake Brahmin. In a cow, which is an ordinary sized animal, and in the mighty elephant, in the dog that you see on the street, and even inside the man who, out of poverty and hunger, cooks that very dog and eats the flesh of that dog. Inside all of them, the Panditas, the great men, they see the same Brahman. This is a statement in the Bhagavad Gita. They are able to do it. They are very great saintly people. We are ordinary people. We cannot do that. Since we cannot do what the saints do, and we cannot experience what the saints experience, we are dependent on the Vedic scriptures, which have been handed over to us by these great saints. This has been said. Now the Veda calls the cause as a sentient being. This is important for us to understand. In the case of Sankhya, we saw in the previous class about how they talk about Atma, that is Purusha. They use the word Purusha for the Atma. And then they use the word Pradhana to refer to Prakriti. You know, there was something fundamentally insentient and inert. By interaction with the Atma, it created the universe. This is what the atheist Sankhya school says. Now, there is a fundamental issue in what they are saying. This is pointed out by Adi Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, everybody. Vedavyasa himself points it out. Therefore, all the others have to follow. An inactive Purusha and inert Pradhana cannot really combine. What makes them interact with each other? The Purusha is inactive. Pradhana is inert. How do they interact with each other? It is impossible. When they merge, there is creation. That is what the Nirishvara Sankhya says. And therefore, they argue in Nirishvara Sankhya that the material cause of the universe, the clay of the pot, is not Brahman. It is Pradhana. Brahman is the potter, but Prakriti is the clay. This is the way they argued. Now, had they just said, this is our school of belief, this is our school of thought, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But some of them started arguing that this is what is said in the Veda as well. That is the reason why Vedavyasa himself had to intervene. Vyasa himself speaks about the Sankhyas in the first Adhyaya, even in the second Adhyaya, Avirodha Adhyaya also it is there. He is discussing about the school because after coming and sharing their opinions, which is absolutely fine, plenty of us can have plenty of opinions, they said the Vedas also say the same thing. Now, There are many different ways to interpret the Vedas. Advaita is one way, Dvaita is another way. Both are interpreting the Vedas. Both schools exist. Yet, there are rules that both of them have to follow. Rules like grammar, interpretation science, context, all of that, right? Context falls under interpretation, right? The science at the end of the day. So, it is necessary for us to do a genuine review of the Vedas to arrive at any conclusion about it. When the Vedas have specifically talked about Brahman seeing and deciding, well, you could say that the word seeing it is a metaphor, but a word like decide can be used only and only if the Brahman itself is intelligent, if it has consciousness. So the cause of everything, Janmadhyasya yataha, as we said, right? The cause of everything, that Brahman, about which we are curious to learn about, that Brahman is an intelligent being. That Brahman decided that it would create, and therefore creation happened. This has been said. So, there is a question about Brahman. Is the Shabda, which is just another word we use for the Veda, is it the only source of knowledge? We said Shastra Yonitvat. But maybe we could take one statement of the Veda and then apply logical reasoning on it, and then try to understand what the statement means. Sounds perfectly fine, right? Take a statement of the Veda, apply some logical reasoning on it, and then try to understand what the statement is saying. Sounds very logical, but it would remain logical only as long as the interpretation that we arrive at by using logic is consistent with the other statements present inside the Veda. When the Veda tells 3-4 similar statements, all of those statements have to be considered together. After that, we have to apply logical reasoning to understand the statement. If we take just one statement and apply logical reasoning, we might get some results. But what about the other statements which give further clarity? Can we ignore statements that give further clarity? We should not. This is very important. So, in the 5th sutra, we said finally the Vedanta Vichara had begun by the 5th sutra, right? The first 4 was just about curiosity to learn about Brahman. The actual discussion about Brahman by taking up the Vedic scriptures begins in the 5th sutra. This is pure Vedanta, like how we say that pure Bhagavad Gita begins in the 2nd chapter. 2nd chapter is where Krishna starts teaching Arjuna. Until then, he is not teaching anything. The first chapter, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, Arjuna is so sad. He tells Krishna, take me to the middle of the battlefield. He looks at everyone, he becomes sad. Who am I going to kill? Who am I going to fight? Why am I going to fight? Should I fight at all? In the 2nd chapter, Arjuna surrenders to Krishna. He says, oh Krishna, Only you can guide me. I don't know what is right. After that, Krishna starts teaching. So the real teaching of Bhagavad Gita, the pure teaching, of course, even the first chapter has a lot of things to teach us, no doubt about it. But pure philosophical discussion begins in the second chapter. In the same way, when we look at the Brahma Sutras, it is from the fifth sutra that a proper discussion of Vedanta really begins. Here, there is a word saw. We discussed a bit about it in the previous class. This word, so at one place, it says, Brahman saw that it will become many. Parabrahman saw that it will become many. What does it mean? Just like how we say, I will see that you don't get promotion. I will see that you get the money that you are supposed to get, and so on. In the same way, the word saw has to be understood metaphorically. And secondly, where the word saw has been used, if you replace that word with decided, you would realize that there are more statements in the Vedas which say the same thing. So Brahman saw that it would become many. Brahman saw that it would create. We have statements that say it decided that it will become many. It decided I will become many. He decided I will create the worlds. Then he created the worlds. Saha, the word is used. Hence, I have written in the English translation as he. So at some places it would say it. At some places the Veda would say he. We should understand that both are referring to the same being, the same Parabrahman. Likewise, at some places it would say saw. At some places it would say decided. How do you merge the two? By saying that the word saw is metaphorically referring to decision making. He decided. It is sankalpa. Now, once the Veda has said that he decided to become many, he decided to create, we can no longer say that he was there in an inactive state and somehow it is this clay, it is Prakriti, which the Nirishwara Sankhyans call as Pradhana, that automatically transformed and resulted in creation. There is no automatic transformation. The transformation, remember, we call creation as a transformation. The creation of the universe, as per Vishishtadvaita, is a transformation from an infinitesimally small state. Sukshma Chidachit Vishishta Brahman was there. From that, it became the macro universe that we see today, Sthula. It is a kind of transformation. This transformation happened not automatically, but by the will of Parabrahman. Because the Veda has said so. Here, another question could be asked. Why should he believe that even the word will is literal? Seeing does not mean seeing, it means deciding. You only just said that. So why should I believe that willing means willing? Why can't it mean something else? Why can't I take that metaphorically? There is an answer to that question. when interpreting the statements of the Vedas or any formal book that you have, Veda shouldn't be called a book, but let us consider even the formal books that we have. For example, our constitution. It's a rule book, the constitution. Can we interpret it as we please? We cannot. There are rules to interpret. Here, inside what we call as interpretation science, one of the most important rules is first, try to make literal meaning of the statement. If the literal meaning does not sound so right, use a figurative meaning. This is very important to understand. Let us take an example from the Vedas itself. Adityo Yupaha. The sun is a pillar. This is a statement in the Veda. How do we understand this? Let us try to understand literally. The sun is a pillar. That is the literal meaning. Okay. What is the sun? The sun is something that is in the sky. It rises in the morning, sets at night. It gives heat and light. What is a pillar? Pillar is something that stands on earth. It is a very tall structure that is usually used to support something on top of it. Nobody has seen a pillar made of light. Can light even sustain weight on top of it? A Upastambha, a pillar that you have on earth, how could that ever be called as the sun? It doesn't make sense. So interpretation science tells us, first try to make sense literally. Is it working? It is not working in this case. Therefore, go to the figurative meaning. Take the pillar to be a metaphor. Like how the pillar rises up and sustains something on top of it. The sun is also doing something similar. Take, for example, Tipu Sultan. Tipu Sultan, they started calling him the Westerners and the Turks, for example. The Turks were his friends. The British were his enemies. The French were his friends. They would all call him as the tiger of Mysore. Was he really a tiger? He wasn't a tiger. He was a human. So first try to interpret literally. If it makes sense, well and good. If it doesn't make sense, understand it figuratively. This is a purely logical concept. We apply this logical concept inside the Veda. When we apply this logical concept inside the Veda, why should we apply a logical concept inside the Veda? Can't we ignore it and move on? Bhagavad Ramanuja said, we should go back to the first sutra. Under Brahma Jignasa, Bhagavad Ramanuja said, who gets this desire to understand about Brahman? Anybody can get the desire. But the desire that is being referred to by Vedavyasa here, by Badarayana here, inside the sutra, is not that of a common man. It is of a man who has already studied the Vedas. Not just a cursory reading. Adhita Sanga Sashiraska Vedasya. He says, of the man who has studied all the Vedas completely till the Upanishad part, till meaning including the Upanishad part of the Vedas, along with all the Angas of the Vedas, the limbs of the Vedas. For that person, this is being discussed. Why? Why not the common man? Because the common man doesn't understand the Veda. He cannot understand which statement of the Veda is saying what. Simple. Therefore, things have to be toned down. We will do all the research. All the research in the world would be done by us. You don't have to worry. We will present to you the final result. You just enjoy. You look at it. There is so much disruption in the industry with AI. So many things have been done. LLMs have been built. There is ChatGPT, there is Gemini, there is this, there is that. And each one is growing so big. They are building agents, automation, this, that. I don't know everything. I cannot create all of that. But they say, you don't worry. We will do all the work. Pay us some money every month. You pay us 2,000 a month, you will get ChatGPT Plus. You pay us 20,000 plus, 20,000 rupees per month, you will get ChatGPT Pro. In the same way, we are saying here that the common man does not have to scratch his brain trying to understand what the Vedas have said. All of that will be handled by the experts who have studied, who desire to know more. For them, Veda Vyasa is clarifying the teachings. Through those clarifications, the ordinary people like you and me can learn the results and be happy with it. If we enter into that research, our entire life will get spent there. But when great beings, people who are much, much more intelligent, who lived for much longer than us, who did much, much more hard work than at least me, you might be more hardworking, I don't know. Such great people have already done the research and given to us. Why should we ignore it? When Einstein says E equals mc square, just accept it and move on. Why to question it unnecessarily and waste time? It is like that. So, they have given us the meaning. Veda Vyasa, in order to help his students to remember these teachings, he created the Vedanta Sutras. The Sutra, which means aphorism in English, is a very small statement which might be ambiguous if we look at it alone, just like that. But there is an intent behind it, about which we know through the Guru Parampara. They preserved the knowledge and passed it down to us. So coming back, we were looking at this Brahman. The Veda says he decided that he would become many. He decided, and therefore he created prana and all the other senses. He saw. When it says he saw, we take the meaning as decided because there are other statements which just change this word to decided. But for the word decided itself, we do not have the need to treat it metaphorically, because even with the literal meaning, we can understand the intent of the Veda in a logical way. This is the teaching of Bhagavad Ramanuja. As much as possible, stay close to the literal meaning of the Veda, literal interpretation. Only if you cannot handle the literal meaning, go towards the figurative meaning. So he decided and he created the worlds. Okay, but then the Sankhyans argued. They said, we cannot understand the cause based on the effect. The effect that we see is the universe. The effect that we see is the universe. The cause of the universe should be something that has the properties of the universe that we see. So the Sankhya said, the Parabrahman that you are talking about does not have the properties of the universe. Therefore, the cause that you are claiming to understand is running contrary to logic. Why do you want to go against logic? You can mess with anything, but not with logic. Don't mess with logic. Interpret the Veda the way we do. You will be logical, we will also be happy. But the Vaidikas said, the Vedantin, they said, see, we think that we are logical with our explanation itself. Because the Vedas have declared him to be Sarvajna, Sarvashakti, and so on. Satya Sankalpa, Purushottama, Sarvajna, one who knows everything. He knows everything. Therefore, he knows to create this universe. He is all powerful. Therefore, he is capable of creating the universe. He has the ability. It's not just theoretical knowledge. He has the practical ability. He is Satya Sankalpa. He would never fail. If he decides, he will do. He decided that he will become many. He became many. He decided that he will create the worlds. He created the worlds. That is a statement of the Veda itself. And he is Purushottam, as we have already seen. He is the very best. We shouldn't think, oh, I tried to create, but I couldn't. How can he create? We cannot be jealous of him because he is better than all of us by definition. Therefore, he can very well be the cause. You are saying the effect is the universe. The effect should have some properties of the cause. The cause should have some properties of the effect, right? Milk becomes curd. Curd is sour. Milk is not sour, but curd is white. Milk is white. So by having curd and knowing the properties of curd, we know that the cost of curd, the material cost of curd, which is milk, it would have some of the properties of curd, some of the fundamental properties. So which fundamental properties does Brahman have? We say that he has the property called ability to create as per his will. Therefore, he is able to create. As a simple example, let us take clay itself. If you have a clay pot, the clay pot can store water. Does it mean that clay by itself should also be able to store water? If I make a clay pot which can contain 1 liter of water, the raw clay that was used to create this pot, would it also be able to hold 1 liter of water? It will not be. So the effect, which is the pot, it has certain properties that do not exist in the cause. This is very important. Why are we discussing this? Oh, pure philosophy. Philosophy is so full of logical reasoning, cause, effect, properties, attributes. How boring it is. But think about it. This is very useful in real life. When you are trying to find out what happened, let us say you're working at an IT company, you're developing some software or some kind of app, and somewhere a bug has come. You need to find the source of the bug. You need to find where the problem began. How would you approach this? You know that something wrong has happened. You know that having a quick fix will not be a permanent solution. You should find the actual source. How would you find the source? It is very important to understand. So, the bug is causing the app to crash. So, the source module itself should be problematic. Should we assume that way? No, no. Maybe the source module is all fine, but just this single component, the bug in that part of the code alone, there is an issue. We cannot jump to conclusions. We should be careful when we try to find the actual source, when we try to pinpoint the source. This is used by CBI. When they investigate, they know that something has happened, something bad has happened. They have to investigate who did this, who is the corrupt fellow, who took money to cheat the public, or who caused this damage to the public property. They investigate. They cannot assume as they please. They have to go slowly, step by step, by using logic. That is why their reports are so huge. So many hundreds of pages. It comes from this approach of understanding the cause through the effect and understanding the reasoning behind it. The Upanishads have declared Brahman to be all-knowing, all-powerful, ever-triumphant. My report already says this fellow is capable of robbing the biggest bank in the world. You are saying it is not possible for him to rob this local bank. What are you saying? He is the biggest robber in the world. He can open anything. He can open any lock. There is nothing he is not capable of doing. In that way, of course, Brahman is pure. He never does anything bad or illegal. And we are talking about the creation of the universe. So, he is ever triumphant in his wishes. He is all powerful. He is all knowing and he is the foremost being. Therefore, it is absolutely possible for him to create. Okay. But what about the common property? Where is the common property? Some common property has to be there, right, in the cause. Where is the common property? We answered in Vishishtadvaita by saying everything is his sharira. We are not saying it by ourselves. Subalopanishad has said this. Brihadaranyukopanishad has said this. This is stated again and again in the Vedas. We are not saying by ourselves. Everything is his sharira. The Achit Mula Prakriti is also from that Mula Prakriti, which you are calling as Pradhana. The universe was formed. So we are not that far away from you. You are valuing logical reasoning. We are also valuing logical reasoning. That's the Prakira of Bhagavan. The properties exist in the Sharira of Bhagavan. And he, when we say Bhagavan, we refer to Parabrahman itself in Vishishtadvaita. Parabrahman, his Sharira has the properties that you are looking for. Then why did we say that we totally agree with you? Because according to us, he decided to create. He ensured that creation happens. And that creation happened by using his Sharira, not some totally different inert entity. It is inert, no doubt, but when he decides to make it different, it will become different. That is the nature of that Parabrahman. Therefore, what you ordinarily use in logical reason will not work with him. In this way, the explanation was given. So, what we need to understand here is the fact that yes, there are times when we go to people. Why should I adopt going? That would be bad. Maybe I might waste my entire life trying to do that research. Others have already done it. Sent the Shabda as Pramana. Okay, but we also accept logical reasoning. Can Shabda go against logical reasoning? Would you accept the Veda even if it is illogical? Logical. And the reason why we call this so uh, very state that at time blind there is more we perform the losses want but proper way take it. So without anything illogical within, we are able to uphold the statements of the Vedas. And this method is the ideal method of interpretation. With this, we will conclude today's session. I hope I was fully audible throughout the lecture because I heard here and there that the recording stopped and restarted in between. If any part was not clear or inaudible, please let me know. I was audible clearly. Okay, thank you. So feel free to ask any question or doubt that you might have. Okay, thank you so much for attending. Shivatam Shiva Shivasaram Bhogorostanam Tatasha Vidyavaki Gotam Tam Pradhanam Simhaya Kalyanam Shalini Shrimate Venkateshaya Vedanta Gurave Namaha.